new role, please do find me after. Yeah, welcome. So I'd like to take the moment to introduce our sponsors, hosts for the evening. This lovely space has been given to us by Fluido, so Alex, if you'd like to come and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hello everyone, nice to see all of you here. I'm Alex, marketing manager at Fluido. And just before I start with a very, very brief explanation of who we are, how many have heard of Fluido before of you or been here? Okay, some hands. Okay, well, hopefully now you will know a little bit more about who we are. And I'll just start with a video. Oh, thank you for. So hopefully that works as well. It's okay. I'll just amplify it with the microphone.
Fluido journey started in 2010 from Finland.
Sorry. Technology doesn't always work.
We help our customers to be superior in their sales, marketing, field service, any business processes.
And that means that we help organizations understand where they're trying to get to, how to get the most out of their investment, and what component parts they need to complete that journey. So what makes Fluido different to other partners in the ecosystem?
It's all about employee experience and customer experience. All the companies in the world, they have some kind of secret sauce, and our secret sauce is our values.
Work must be fun, and that's why we decided to take fun seriously.
We believe in superheroes. We believe that everyone is unique in our own special way.
Friends don't let friends down, whether that's helping out a colleague with a tricky task or being there for a customer when they have a question.
Action speaks louder than words. We believe in helping internally as well as community, and here we are.
We trust. It is critical that we as Fluidians trust each other to do the right thing for our clients. And over time, they get real strategic value as opposed to a tactical fix.
Thank you. So pretty much we are a Salesforce consultancy. We're part of EINSTIN. We're a Salesforce Summit partner. And Fluido as a company has started back in 2010 in Finland. So then we expanded throughout the Nordics, and 2018 we were acquired by EINSTIN. And in this market we're still quite new, that's why probably some of you haven't heard, or many of you haven't heard of us. So we've been here for about 2 years now, but now we're about 80 people here in the UK. Okay. And yeah, this is the global scale, so it's not only us that are part of the EINSTIN family. You probably might have seen some of the other companies here, like Wongdoody, for example, which is a user experience design company. Then we also have Simplus, who's mostly responsible for Salesforce work in the US and Australia. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we're pretty much present in Europe. We are the leading partner in the Nordics. Here we're still quite fresh, as I mentioned. We do focus on pretty much most of the Salesforce solutions, cloud and industries, including MuleSoft, and I have a slide about that afterwards. We're also an official training partner, so Salesforce training is something that we have been providing for a long time as well. Not only Sales Cloud, but Marketing Cloud, products, account engagement, custom training, and yes, we have about 450 plus people across Europe. Next one, please. This is a very busy slide, but pretty much this is our center of excellence that is specifically dedicated to MuleSoft. And what we do, we have an experienced group of consultants here working with us. We also have an award-winning partnership with MuleSoft. So EINSTIN has been a most awarded partner for best customer success, for certifications, for workshops, and for the product briefings and roadmaps. We also focus strongly on solutions and frameworks, and we have a lot of implementation experience that is also showcased by some of our customers that you can see on this slide. If you have any more questions about the MuleSoft practice, some of my colleagues are here. Please raise your hand if you are from Fluido. Okay, so you can talk to them as well. And if you do like the offices here, the atmosphere here, we are looking for talent, so do talk to us as well. But that's about it. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for allowing us to host you. I hope you have a great session. Oh, and by the way, also there will be a competition right at the end. So we do have some Pluto sponsored swag with some interesting things. So hopefully you manage to get one of those. Thank you.
Thank you. So introducing our speakers today, we have Anu and Katya, both from Fluido, and as Alex mentioned, if you do have any questions about Fluido and what they do, please do reach out to them. But kicking us off, Anu. And, oh, AJ, is he there? Where? There he is. Hello. And yeah, AJ Kumar, Head of Solution Engineering for MuleSoft, will be speaking on how MuleSoft can help unlock value for Datacloud.
Yeah. So
I'll start by just giving a brief introduction. I actually could have asked Anu to help with the clipboard here. So, different companies have different energy solutions, and some solutions are more suitable for their business case. Out of the box, we get obviously the Salesforce reports and dashboards that come with the report. Then you have the CRM Analytics, which is an add-on tool and an extra price, obviously. And then you also would have the likes of Power BI, Tableau, ClickView, and so on. Salesforce reports and dashboards are all out of the box. We all know, we've used them, they're quite limited. You can do your analysis to a degree, and then you can get stuck. You have to export the data, you have to do a VLOOKUP somewhere else, and they can be automated to an extent. Then on the other hand, you have CRM Analytics, which is Salesforce native. It is part of Salesforce. You don't have to worry about integrating it. You don't have to worry about security. Well, you do have to worry about security, but it's slightly easier to implement than if you would use an external tool like, for example, Power BI or Tableau. But then in some cases, some companies prefer the likes of Power BI and Tableau because they might be more Microsoft-centered. So that solution actually makes sense for them from a pricing point of view and from a security point of view. But from some projects that we've been involved in, it's quite more tricky to give the right access to the long-term user for the external tools. Again, the likes of Power BI and Tableau. It's possible, but it's not as easy as CRM Analytics. I've added also another slide here, which is kind of very easy way, in my view, to determine what tool from CRM Analytics versus Salesforce dashboards is the best for your solution. So let's say somebody comes in, the sales team, and says, I have a specific requirement. So going through this flowchart, you can say, well, is it complex? Does it require more than 5 data sets, for example, or like more than 2 data sets? If it does, if it requires specific joins or something that is not as easily achieved in with some reports, you're probably better off going to CRM Analytics. Again, are you using some external data? Are you using, let's say, targets that are being imported monthly or weekly? Something that might not make sense to bring as a Salesforce object, then this could be another solution for CRM Analytics. And again, as Luke mentioned, sometimes some data sets might be too big to bring into Salesforce because it comes into row limits, and CRM Analytics comes with additional row limits, which I can't tell you exactly how much of it. I want to say 10 billion, but I might be wrong about that. And then the last one that I put in this is what kind of access do you require for the data, the row level security. So I know there is loads of work you can do in Salesforce with the row level security. So when you log into your report, you see just the data that you have access to. But we all know that there are limitations to dynamic dashboards that you can have in Salesforce. You have 5, I think, out of the box. So when I log in, let's say, to a dashboard, I might not be able to see my specific view. CRM analytics, you write a row-level security data set, log in, and you see your own data. This is just kind of high level, just to kind of highlight the difference between the two tools. Now, with Anoop's help, I would go to the actual demo. Oops. You can see I'm not an Apple user.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to use my improvised...
One second.
Yep. Sorry.
Where I think I need to stop share. And...
I'm not showing the screen.
this one, right?
I think it's just a tab in there, no?
Yeah.
Okay. So, as Anoop mentioned at the start of the presentation, we will use a fictional second-hand cars company, and our persona would be a service engineer, I want to say. Yeah, thank you. You can see I'm not a very big expert in cars, so there you go. I don't usually get my car checked. So let's say I log in the morning and I want to see what is ahead of me, or how my quarter looks ahead of me. So I've created, based on the data that Anoop brought into MuleSoft, I've created a very simple dashboard. It's nothing very fancy. It took me literally 10 minutes. I should probably not say that because I said it's taking much longer. And this one is not filtered by the logged in user because it's just like high level, but I could have added an extra security saying, when I log in, I see just the cases assigned to me, for example. You could see that as opposed to typical Salesforce dashboards, I don't have any filters at the top. It's because the components of the dashboard, they are connected to each other, especially since this one actually is working on the same data set, but you could connect different data sets in here. So I could use the report as a filter. So I'm selecting here the clients that are coming for the fourth service, and then I might be also interested in the ones coming on the, whatever it is, 14th of November. So I get a little list there. Nothing super fancy. I could add here a link to take me to the actual car if I had this record in Salesforce, but this is dummy data, so we don't have that much information here. Also, I could go to embed a dashboard on an account level. First fleet, that's where my use case is working. My persona, sorry. Again, I have the dashboard embedded here. If I had more than one account, I could filter it to just include the account relevant information, just like any normal Salesforce reports. And then when I go to a specific usage-related record, I could embed it in here. Here I have a little taster, really, because it's not too well done. I haven't spent too much time doing it because, again, data is just limited. So you could, besides just putting dashboards, you could also do predictive analysis. So this was my attempt to kind of say, what alert are we expecting this car to have in the future based on the parameters that are part of the Salesforce, part of the data set that Anoop provided. But anyway, this looks all pretty standard. So let's go and have a look at how it all looks in the back end. So I'm going to go to the waffle, and I'm going to go straight to the back end. Going to Analytics Studio would take me to the app where I can create dashboards, but I'm actually going to go to the Data Manager. There you go. And that's going to take me to the back end where all the data cleansing, all the data cleansing happens. So you could see here the first view that opens is the jobs that run that the system has run in the past. You could see that some of them failed. You can also see what caused the error. CRM Analytics, like all the orgs, all the tools, has some limitations. So one of the limitations that CRM Analytics has is that you can run 60 recipes within 24 hours if the recipe takes longer than 2 minutes to run. So just something to keep in mind, just if you ever go into that area. But let me go into the recipe that actually did all the cleansing. So again, as Anoop mentioned, some of the data went into a Salesforce object, and some of the data was imported through an API into a data set. So I've brought in here the data that was brought into the API. This is, through the API, sorry. This is the Salesforce object. I'll show you a little bit later how to connect into it. And here's another Salesforce object that allows me to determine the price associated with a specific service type and car brand. Very quickly, all I've done here, for example, I did a little bit of data cleansing. So the tools, the options that you have in CRM Analytics, you can create your own formulas. And I would suggest, if you ever go into that route, not to overlook it, because we all know that in Salesforce, sometimes some formulas could be quite tricky to write. And CRM Analytics allows you to write slightly more complex formulas. And I'm actually going to show you a little bit later how you could write them back to the Salesforce object. So you could use some formulas, some basic kind of trimming, splitting, uppercase, pretty much text cleansing operations. You can transform text to number and date. You can format dates. You can bucket fields. Very similar again to Salesforce reporting, except here you don't have a limitation of how many buckets you create. You can create hierarchies, especially when it comes to roles. Change the label names, drop columns if you want to, detect sentiment. That's also very good for if you have some, for example, something like Twitter data or some customer comments. Predict missing values, that comes with the EINSTIN part. Time series forecasting and clusters. And the last ones are kind of to do with the predictive analysis, which we unfortunately have no time to look at today. So again, what I've done, I've taken Anoop's API imported data. I have done a joint with a Salesforce object. You can do a simple lookup, left join, right join, inner and outer join, and you can do a cross join. Again, something you can't really do easily with simple Salesforce custom reports. Again, they've been joined on a specific lookup key. You can have multiple lookup keys. In this case, it's odometer and brand. And then I have outputted the data set that the dashboards were built on. From the joined node, I also have the option to create more branches and then process the data further for further purposes. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you can have 60 jobs running within 24 hours, and this is one of the ways you kind of have more data sets and more outputs done within the same recipe without utilizing too many of those runs. But again, you kind of have to be careful that you don't create monsters that are going to take hours and hours to run. So I have cleansed the data a bit more, did a simple join, and then I have done some write-backs into the object. So the usage object that Anoop brought in did not contain the brand of the car that the VIN number is associated with. So I've used CRM Analytics to calculate the brand, and then I am using the output connector, which I'll show you a little bit later on how to do it, to write back that field onto the object. I created a blank field, and I'm just writing it back. You could write these extra fields or the calculated fields back using an insert, an update, or an upsert function. So the recipe wouldn't run unless there is an output node, and you can output the data, the results of a recipe in 3 ways. You can do it as a data set, which is just a data set that resides in Salesforce Analytics, as an output connector, which allows you to write data back into Salesforce, or you can write it into Snowflake, or into a CSV file. I am going to jump out of here for a second. And I'm going to show you the connectors that are available. So as I mentioned in my recipe, I have used a couple of Salesforce objects. So I can show you how to connect it. It's pretty easy. There is an option to create connectors. And in this case, I've connected to my Salesforce org, and I can just simply go to Edit Objects if I don't have it in, and for example, connect to any object here and select the fields that are associated with the object. Sometimes you might know you have a field, but it's not there. It's not, and you have access to it. It's due to the fact that the connection to Salesforce is done through an integration user, analytics integration user, and if the user doesn't have access to the field, you cannot see it. So you just have to make sure that the Salesforce integration user has access to the fields that you want to bring to the recipe. CRM Analytics also comes with a range of native connectors that you might be able to utilize. Obviously, the Salesforce. You can connect to an external Salesforce org, so for example, some other company's Salesforce org, or maybe, I think in your case you had a service sales org, isn't it? So we could have connected to that directly. You can connect to Redshift, to BigQuery, just give me a second, just to scroll through. And then there are quite a few native MuleSoft connectors. You've got MuleSoft SQL connector, MuleSoft Oracle connector, and you've got the MuleSoft SQL Server connector. Anoop tells me it's different from what we've done, but I'll just have to take his word for that.
So the method which I show you today is like where we are using APIs to connect to the source and retrieve the records and process it, full capability. We are using full capability from MuleSoft to suppose you have a requirement where we need to do the transformation, translation, everything. So you can use that approach. So this is approach is like this is another method from where we can retrieve records from different sources and upload that records to the CRM. Okay, so and this approach has different outer limits, and the one we see earlier that has different outer limits. So that's the difference. But suppose if Kathy wants to upload records from different sources like Oracle, SQL, or some MySQL, some in an easy way, she can do that, and she don't need to use any in-house capabilities from MuleSoft. So that time she can go with that. So in this approach, you still need the inbound platform, but this will be act like a data loader from a MuleSoft POV.
And the last thing that I'm going to mention is that the way I have written back the brand back into a Salesforce object, I have used an output connector, but you don't necessarily have to write your fields back to Salesforce. There are options to also write them back into likes of Snowflake. So you could calculate you can merge your data in CRM Analytics, do your calculations, your cleanup, whatnot, and then write the output into Snowflake. It doesn't necessarily have to be here. I don't have it here enabled, but it's literally, you go into settings, you go to analytics settings, and it's a tick box. Nothing super complicated, just set up the parameters. So it just has more capabilities of what you can do with data once you have it cleansed. So kind of to summarize it, one of the main advantages of CRM Analytics is that it kind of has considerably the time that somebody would need for creating reports. The data is live, you get it cleansed, and it just improves business processes. It kind of automates a lot of processes again. As the service engineer, for example, maybe in the future he would have had to look at different reports and reports.
It's just day-to-day activities can be done more faster. He can, as a company, because they can offer more better service to the customer, and from a organization level, they can easily track, what are the sales projection and what's the revenue they are going to get in upcoming months, and what are the things they need to stock, etc. So, and further to that, for instance, we can take that IoT data, for instance, that geolocations can be plugged into the marketing cloud. That's another thing which we can do, and we we can do additional processing, like we can offer discounts to the customer based on this data. Okay, so that's another further steps we can do on top of this.
Whatever he says.
Yeah, that's the way first
Thank you
is
for your
we
time.
can. Thank you.
Do you need any mouse or anything?
No, I just need to maybe scroll. It was the other browser window which was open for Menti.
Okay, you already logged in?
I have. I think yes.
That
All
one.
right. Where is the mouse?
Maybe,
Can you make this?
this one, yeah.
This one, right? Yeah. Okay. Brilliant.
Need a clicker.
Yes. And should I use a mic or?
So that people online can hear
Okay.
this. Absolutely.
Yep. Okay.
Is this that you can share? Because I'm sharing only this one. There is another presentation.
Good. Yeah. Okay, good. Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Just a quick introduction to myself, and we'll probably get started with this interesting session. So, you've probably heard about Datacloud, so we'll probably go around the room, and I want to hear more from you of what you understand. So, just a quick context is, this is not going to be a Datacloud session, but this is about how MuleSoft can unlock value for Datacloud customers. I'll give you a sneak peek of what Datacloud really composes of, and we'll probably see that going forward. A quick intro about myself. I've been with the company now 6.5 years, formerly with marketing and commerce cloud side of the business, and now with MuleSoft as one of the heads of solution engineering here in UKI, supporting a couple of industries. Worked with or interacted with most of you in the room in different capacities and other events. So looking forward to continuing this interaction. So firstly, thank you for making it here. I know listening to Salesforce and MuleSoft oriented topics repeatedly must have actually caught up with you over a period of time. But today, really wanted to make it more clear and crisp in terms of what the messaging is, so that whenever you are in those positions of interacting with those customers, where these are the two types of technologies, you have a clear message on what kind of advancement or what kind of use cases you can look into. So firstly, just a quick breakdown of what we will actually go through, like context of Datacloud itself, and we'll see how MuleSoft completes that part of the picture. And then I'd love to show you what that looks like from a MuleSoft ecosystem. I tried to get us a Datacloud sandbox, but it looks like probably it's not going to be in our favor today to boot up, because I had to sort of go through some configuration changes. So we'll probably stick to the MuleSoft ecosystem today. But the Datacloud one, I promised to come back and spend another hour unlocking or breaking out Datacloud, which is another favorite topic of mine. And then we'll do a Q&A. But feel free to interject in between, because I don't believe you should hold back on your questions. Before we get there, can I request each one of you to open up your phone, laptop, iPad, whichever you have, and go to menti.com. Use the following code, and I have put it in bold, and I need to slide over so that we'll go through sort of a round of questions in the room. And this is not knowledge check, this is just more for fun. So let me know if anybody is having any issues logging in. We'll probably move over. Right. Okay, brilliant.
I'm sorry, it's not sharing the screen because we're only sharing one tab.
Oh,
Just
is
a
it?
moment, yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So, most of you might have already gotten, so let's look at question number 1. Familiarity with Salesforce Datacloud. I see the most popular answer is, I have no idea. Okay, there's maybe as well. Okay. So, another trivia question, which we'll probably come back to when Akshata wraps up the session later, is going to be around Datacloud. So pay close attention to what we'll go through today. Your definition of Datacloud, if you said yes in the previous answer, or even maybe no, can you try to say what Datacloud means for you in less than 10 words? I hate essays, so I'm trying to ask you, come up with your own jargons or try to take a stab at what Datacloud means. We'll see if there's any interesting answers there. Okay, I see Genie. Nice. Data on the cloud. Very good. There's a set of exclamation, which is exactly what I expected as well. It was exactly what was running in our head when we heard the term Datacloud first time within Salesforce. Oh wow, it goes beyond the scrolling capability. Let me see if it is going to multi-pages. Right. Wow, okay. We'll come back, and most of the answers that you have typed in there, and I'm sorry, apologies in advance, I'm not going to read through each of the answer. You'll actually find a variation of this stitched within what you're going to discuss today. And in one way or the other, you're absolutely right, because from the time we launched Datacloud to where it is today, people are still trying to understand what it is. And the product is also evolving at the same pace. So just to give you an example, and that example will come when I wrap up. The next question is Datacloud's original name. So we see, cannot remember, Datacloud 2, CDP, Datacloud, Datacloud Returns, Max the Mule, Future, Home. Genie. Who said Genie? Who is it? Yeah, Kevin. Do you want to share with the room why do you think it's Genie?
I can't quite remember. It was probably Salesforce last year, the main event, and there was a lot about Genie and the actual, not icon, emoji, whatever you call it, the mascot. Right. And then for some reason it stuck, with it just being related to CDP. And
brilliant. Can we give a round of applause to Kevin?
Yeah, but you rebranded it already, right? You moved away from Genie.
So there's a story behind why we call it Genie, which I'll probably share during our social time. But we've actually moved away from the Genie brand. And when we saw at Dreamforce last year, them announcing Genie, Salesforce product org, marketing org, we actually announced Genie for multiple clouds. Genie for MuleSoft was also there. So it actually started resulting in a lot of confusion coming up. Like, what does Genie for MuleSoft mean? Is there a product? Is there something that is specific to MuleSoft? And Genie for Sales Cloud, Service Cloud was all reasonable, but Genie for every other cloud started creating more confusion. So what we'll do today is demystify some of that, and with that we'll sort of move into the deeper content, which is where exactly did this actually originate for us? This is just retrospective of what Datacloud origins look like. So Salesforce is known for its acquisitions. Like I think we are on the 79th or 81st acquisition right now. After Slack, there were two other smaller companies. ServiceTrace, which is our RPA, MuleSoft RPA, was the last acquisition in the company before the tech industry and the other industry went down the spiral. And Datacloud has its origin deeply trapped within what happened with Marketing Cloud. And I come from that background, so I'm going to share the story behind the story. So Marketing Cloud itself was a company called ExactTarget, which was acquiring companies within itself. And once we acquired Marketing Cloud, we acquired a company called Crux. If anybody has worked on Crux, raise your hand. So Crux was a DMP, data management platform. I'm not going to explain what DMP today is, but think of it as an example where you're in the room talking to your family, your spouse. You probably end up having a bad cough. Your Alexa is switched on. 2 days later, on your Facebook, you see an ad for cough syrup being shown to you. How does it work? Right? So DMP was born with the idea of how can I take an unknown identity and stitch it back to a known identity. And back in the day, try to see PII, first party, second party, unknown identity data matching was not that closely examined because for first, the legal authorities didn't even understand. And companies were really starting to cash in on it, and DMP or Crux was one of those products. That's a separate conversation of what DMP is today. DMP became CDP, Customer Data Platform. And Customer Data Platform was largely on Marketing Cloud product, which meant, can I take a customer data which is not just in Salesforce but outside and activate it to send a personalized email, SMS. Let's say, for example, as I'm walking into Florida's office today, I know I had to pass through a few restaurants and cafes. If I've been a customer of one of those cafes, and if they have an app, for example, I don't imagine they have a mobile app, but if they're a popular chain, they're probably going to have a mobile app for their loyalty management. So as I'm cutting through their shop, I'll probably get a pop-up notification on my mobile app saying, hey, we have a 20% booking for your dinner if you're bringing in your family. And they only know that I'm actually cutting through their shop because they have a geofence. And this is exactly what CDP used to actually purpose-built for, scale and personalization. So when we actually took CDP to the next level, we really wanted to do this more for all other parts of Salesforce, not just marketing cloud. And that's where Datacloud was born. So when we speak with customers, like from Salesforce, we observe that at an enterprise level, there are over 900 plus applications that any company has. And this is like, we're talking about the Adidas of the world or the Nikes of the world, Coca-Colas of the world. But as you come down the chain as well, you'll still find companies having at least a good 30, 40, if not tens of applications. And that resulted in how can you actually take that insight from all those applications, and for a B2B company or even for a B2C company, how can you translate that into meaningful insights? So there was a really hard time. And you've probably seen this before. This is a very popular diagram of a spaghetti code, right? We all see that in the MuleSoft plan. But what it really meant for real-time customer personalization was we had to try to connect multiple sources of applications together, but towards an end goal of how can you make sense of that customer data? And that is the reason why Datacloud was born. And if a customer is on multiple orgs of Salesforce, we know there's another nightmare or towards that one. And there is IT costs that keep bubbling up. Every CFO, every CIO is always concerned about how can I cut down my cost, but still achieve maximum results out of my Salesforce MuleSoft investment. So data latency is another big element. So all this really was a concern for Mark and his executives. Whenever Mark used to go to customers like Ford or BMW or even Adidas, they used to always ask Mark the same question. Luckily, he was in the tower today, Salesforce Tower, which is a surprise visit. Not many people in the office, but you would probably see people are not coming to the office and enforce another get back to the office room.
Or sell the property.
So, coming back to what Mark got asked was around how can you actually help us better, Mark, with our investment of Salesforce technology. And always Mark said, oh, you have to buy this one more cloud. But once the customer has actually purchased all 67 SKUs of products, what then? You still need to get value. So some of our customers have actually purchased all of our products. And those are the customers really pushing Mark and his executives really hard. And that is where the next gen CRM conversation started. So you'll see and hear more about next gen CRM at Dreamforce, but Datacloud is actually the foundation of all of that. So Datacloud has been a big shift to re-platform the Salesforce platform itself. So what we did is we took all the goodness of CDP, DMP back in the day, and we brought that together along with adding data lake within the metadata platform. So what you see is a transactional database is still there, which is behind the scene as an Oracle database. Mark originates from Oracle as his former background. So there's still a lot of love for Oracle. So we're not yet moved away from Oracle technologies. Datacloud is our resident hyperscaler data lake built within the ecosystem. And what that really gives us is a capability to absorb all the goodness of the data built within the Salesforce ecosystem, because we're building it on Hyperforce. And Hyperforce, for those who haven't heard, is Salesforce's public cloud transformation. So we are going to, and we've already started this journey. We are taking Salesforce, which was in a first-party data center of Salesforce, to more public cloud technologies like AWS, Azure, and GCP, and taking it to data centers closer to the customers. And those who particularly work with federal government or other regulated industries have seen how that is a big concern, and they've always been pushing Salesforce to come more closer to them rather than hosting it on a private data center. So Datacloud really becomes that hyperscaler data layer. On top of that is Einstein intelligence. So you probably heard at AI Day more recently, Einstein GPT absorbs a lot of richness and goodness of Datacloud. We're not doing the Einstein GPT session today. I think it's a different one for a different session. But flow automation. You heard about flow automation being very close to MuleSoft. I'd love to touch upon that as well and what that means behind the product. And Lightning. We've all built apps, experiences on Lightning, and all of that can easily consume content from Datacloud. So if you were to dive deep into, and I'm sorry I didn't cover the customer and partner apps, which is equally very important. The app exchange. Sorry.
So you talked about traditional databases for a customer. What's Datacloud? Is it Snowflake or something else under the hood, or is it something unique? So traditional database, you talked about Oracle database, right? So what is powering Datacloud? Is it Snowflake or is it native technology? Salesforce has built.
Absolutely. Happy to. So Datacloud behind the scene is actually customized Postgres. So Salesforce a while back started this journey, and you can find this information on TradeNet. There's a project called Project Sayonara. And Project Sayonara means Project Goodbye, and we started this to say goodbye to Oracle, but we never got off Oracle. So as a result of this, we started building our own internal database called Salesforce Database, and this project actually didn't become what it was supposed to be, but that idea of Project Sayonara SDB, Salesforce Database, was the root that actually sitting within Datacloud, and that's the Postgres customization. The Snowflake part I'll share more because we have direct integrations with Snowflake, which in a way impacts MuleSoft because we don't need MuleSoft for Snowflake integrations anymore if it's a one-way copy, and that will become true bi-directional very soon. So we'll see more of that when we get deeper into Datacloud. So how is Datacloud different from CDP? This is an important question. If you're speaking with a marketer, if your customer is a CMO, if you're speaking with a CIO who's previously purchased, or a CEO who's previously purchased CDP, they might ask you, like, I just bought CDP 2 years ago, and now you're asking me to buy Datacloud again? What is this additional advantage? So you should definitely be able to simplify this to this equation. Datacloud is CDP plus the hyperscaler storage, right? And this hyperscaler storage is the one that I just talked about, and all the goodness of the platform. So we are now able to position Datacloud as not a marketing suite of products, but across the umbrella. While Datacloud has a few SKUs today, I told you this is not going to be a Datacloud deep dive session. There is multitude of Datacloud SKUs, Datacloud for Tableau, Datacloud for platform, and Datacloud for marketing available today. These are kind of 3 SKUs that you can sell to our customers from a Salesforce angle, but that's a conversation for a different audience. And on top of platform is all our customizable apps and all the clouds that we have built on top of the metadata platform. So before I move further, right? Any questions? Any questions? We'll take more. Is there a question?
Yeah, I mean, just like if I have built my own data cloud, if I have built my own data cloud, so how does this equation fits in?
Thank you. I have a representation of that architecture of, and every customer would have their own data warehouse, or their own data warehouse, or a combination of technologies that they would have built over a period of time. And we are not telling them to throw them away, but sort of see as a coexistence value, and you'll actually be able to position this as a benefit that they can actually get on top of their existing investments. So Datacloud, if you slice it at a 5,000 feet level, now that if we have to go deeper into one layer below, it typically goes through these 5 steps as a customer engagement activity. So it starts with multitude of data sources. The reason I have put in Salesforce applications also as a data source, we'll talk about it, but there are third-party applications, there are these web services, external APIs, all of that could be a part of the ecosystem of Salesforce, could be external to Salesforce as well. Those are part of the data sources. After the data sources, you actually go through the connectivity process, which is powered either by a batch stream ingestion or bulk upload. And then there is scaling that is built in within the platform. I'll talk about some of the scaling features as we go. And then there is data harmonization. Anybody understand what is data harmonization? One word. If you play around with ETL, ERP solutions.
Aggregation.
Aggregation is one of the key words, absolutely, spot on. So harmonization is really basically taking data that could come from multitude of sources, and then under the harmonization you could do a lot of other properties like data lineage, verifying if the data there's data duplication or there's data quality issues, etc. So we built quite a good harmonization engine inside Datacloud. How good is it with respect to the likes of Informatica, etc.? I'm not going to go into that conversation, a different kind of session for it. But harmonization is built in between Datacloud for the first time, which is really empowering. Has anybody used the Tableau data pipelines? SDP, Salesforce data pipelines, Tableau data pipelines. So if you bring in data inside Tableau, you had a very powerful data modeling engine as you were bringing. That is actually powering the harmonization capability. And you can know, and you've seen Tableau ingesting or modeling very large volumes of data, petabytes volumes of data.
Is it static modeling or is it constantly learning?
There's a combination as well. So a customer could customize it. It could be an ongoing change, which is refreshing. It could, because of the ingestion process that comes in, and it could be static for those customers who are probably changing once a year. And then there's unification. So this is a key element, and we'll speak when MuleSoft has a role to play. Unification is particularly identity matching. So if I, as Ajay, come from Salesforce, I have activate salesforce.com, but I would never probably sign up on Amazon.com using my Salesforce ID to purchase, let's say, a book. I probably use my personal Gmail address, but if I'm on booking.com booking a holiday, I probably may not use the same Gmail address because I might see that I want to use a different ID because I've been using maybe a different Gmail address. If you bring all of that data together from a consumer perspective, let's say for the same customer audience, how does Salesforce know that it is the same Ajay that is existing on different records? If a brand like booking.com is trying to send me a message, it could say Ajay has 4 different IDs that we have seen across several other ecosystems, but you must know not all that data is first party. First party is the data that exists within Salesforce. Anything that you could bring from your agency, second party, third party sources could become the other external sources. So we'll speak about unifying, analyzing and prediction. This is another important element. So you'll actually see a lot of prediction around AI built in within this, which is an inherent property of Datacloud. Activation is another important layer. Of all these 5 layers, right? I won't consider the first one, data sources, a layer. Of all the 5 steps, can anybody guess where MuleSoft has a role to play? Good? Yeah, that's a good shot. Any more guesses? Yes, act. That was a good as well. Unify. It has a role to play in Unify, absolutely. Yes, we'll take a closer look into it. So that's a very developer-centric view of looking at it, and for that reason, I will cover the API part of Datacloud as well. And sorry, this is an important one. When Datacloud was actually first positioned, right, we started looking from MuleSoft side, like what can we do to help? And this is where me coming from Marketing Cloud, Commerce Cloud background, and now as a part of MuleSoft, started approaching this on where does the gap exist for Datacloud customers. Typically, it is at the point of ingestion and activation at a higher level, but as we go deeper, there are more capabilities that we can unlock. So what does the gap really look like? Because in all honesty, if you open up a Datacloud instance today, there are over 120 out-of-the-box connectors built in. So you may be a bit confused to see what this out-of-the-box connectors really do, because if they already have connectors, where would MuleSoft fit in, right? So this is one element that you should have clarity on, because connectors built inside Datacloud, which are pre-built, are largely the ones that have been inherited from Tableau, Marketing Cloud, and Commerce Cloud. Because Marketing Cloud acquired a product called Datarama, which came Israeli company, packed in about 120, 140 connectors. Tableau came with its own set of connectors. So all of that is bulkified the inbuilt connectors for Datacloud. But are they purpose-built for enterprise integration? Absolutely not. They serve the purpose for point-to-point data ingestion. But if you're doing an enterprise scale, composable integration, only MuleSoft can actually unlock that. And that's the one that I want to talk to you today about. And the point of activation, we can have numerous other workflows, including RPA and flow orchestrator as well. So, coming to the point of how MuleSoft benefits our customers when in a Datacloud strategy. And this is typically what we have seen as well, and this is a slide that I don't want to spend time talking to this audience today. But we've been talking about composability for a very long time. And composability really has been either driven by API-led as a messaging, or has been powered by reusable interfaces, for example. And when we started looking at this from a Datacloud perspective, we wanted to showcase, and this probably is the slide that we saw at Dreamforce, Genie for MuleSoft, which is Datacloud for MuleSoft, and Datacloud and MuleSoft together can mean value across these set of components. There's connectors that Composer brings into play. There's connectors which Anypoint platform packages. There's accelerators, which are pre-built. There's MuleSoft Direct. Anyone use MuleSoft Direct in the audience? It's a relatively new part of the product where we are trying to address industry standard APIs. It could be healthcare, it could be telco media like EMF, and it could be other manufacturing, automotive, media, etc. So we are trying to reduce the burden of developers trying to develop those interfaces by packaging in pre-built connectors for industry. Data integration. So this is largely around, not trying to say we will do ETL, ELT problems, it's solving, because have you in the past 6-7 months heard about MuleSoft doing something in this space? Yeah. Okay. So that product or project has been shelved, called DataPath or DataWorks. Some of you have been probably called to review that pilot. The reason being is we thought, should we actually go head on with the likes of early stages of Informatica, build a very strong ETL tool capability, but then we decided that's not our forte. That's not what we actually are supposed to be engineering behind the scene. There are other technologies out there for it. And at the same time, Datacloud team was building something really strong for ETL, ELT. So the part around harmonization, which you saw, is actually using Salesforce data pipelines or Tableau data pipelines. And the pilot that we did to come up with an integration or ETL, ELT solution was using data pipelines, which could ingest terabytes worth of data, manipulate it. Today, it's a pain problem, so with MuleSoft. Ingestion at a point of scale is still a problem, but we didn't want to overload our platform with that capability. So that was data integration. At the point of engagement or activation, as we said, there's Composer, RPA, and our crown jewel Endpoint platform. So most recently, you probably have seen us speak more about hyperautomation than integration. So this was probably one of our go-to-market pivot that we did, where we said we will invest more on hyperautomation story, but at the same time not lose focus on our crown jewel, which is integration. So there's a background I wanted to share about that. So just about three months ago, we onboarded a new executive in our product engineering space. A gentleman's name is Param Kaur. He joins us from UiPath. He was a chief product officer of UiPath. So we basically poached the chief product officer itself. And we brought that person in the company to spearhead to make our automation story more robust. But we will do it more from an API lens, and we will do it more from a composable lens, but we will not lose the focus of what we've been doing before. Integration is still our key bread and butter. Hyperautomation adds a lot more value around the ecosystem. So that's where you'll see hyperautomation then. So MuleSoft, when we started evaluating data strategy for connectivity, This is probably another element that I should share with the community. About 3 months ago, around the same time when Tarun Call was actually brought into the ecosystem, Datacloud is headed by an executive called Steve Fisher today. And Steve is ex-Salesforce. He went out of Salesforce, went to eBay, he was the chief product officer, came back to Salesforce to head and build the next-gen CRM vision. At the engineering level, MuleSoft, Datacloud, and now EINSTIN are combined into one product group. So you can actually see what that synergy means for us in the future, because one cannot exist without the other. So Datacloud success in an enterprise, really, or a mid-range customer, because of the various amounts of applications that exist, or SaaS application services that exist, MuleSoft is the biggest benefactor by coexisting. And probably the same exists with AI capabilities as well, as we probably saw at AI Day, Mark talking about Salesforce integrating with external LLMs, and how do you facilitate that by building in governance, etc., powered by MuleSoft. So we'll see more of that, but I'm not covering the AI bit today. And the value for customers was around 3 important factors. And these are coming right out of my product manager's engagement notes. So these were probably not presented before on why did we decide to coexist with Datacloud. API-centric nature or approach and the SaaS business approach was still very critical. We realized that a lot of customers who use MuleSoft are also probably going to be buying Datacloud and vice versa. And that's probably the engagement model. The initial load matters. What this means is when we actually bring in data into Datacloud, the ingestion, the way it happens really matters. And I'll talk more in detail of what that ingestion principle really means and why it is important. The development time matters as well. If you keep bringing data in various batches and chunks of data volume, and you keep building connectors after connectors, it doesn't serve the purpose unless you actually drive templated version of that usage. So as we speak, we're sort of building the field-led accelerator for Datacloud. My team is actively participating in that, and we are driving a lot of inputs from customer use cases that we are hearing from the field. So Datacloud and MuleSoft at the point of ingestion and the point of activation largely sits across those profiles. But the reason why we don't stress much around some of the elements around unification is because Datacloud does it really well. We don't have to do a groundwork to do unification. And what that unification really means is that ID matching, which I spoke of. And ID matching goes back to our CDP or DMP days, when we could identify and match unknown sources with a known source and come up with, you may be wondering, how does it actually work under the hood? Just a quick one-line answer. There's 2 technical elements there. There's a probabilistic match and deterministic match. If you've dealt with statistics before, probabilistic match tells you like how likely is this customer the same customer. Deterministic is it will give you a value and score to say that if you proceed down this path, you're most likely going to hit the same customer. And based on this, Marketing Cloud back in the day with DMP used to be really smart to detect if I take this path, will I actually end up becoming a spam email or a spam message? And if I take this path, will I actually land in the inbox as a promotion folder, right? So that is something that we wanted to take it to other clouds of Salesforce. And that is where the beauty of calculated insights comes in. Calculated insight is a depth of a topic in itself. We have some very pioneering visionaries from the field who have actually come and joined the organization. We poached some top talent from Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon to help us build these calculated insights. And these are the pioneers who have been nothing short of a distinguished or a technical fellow in those organizations, reporting into Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates. Because we needed somebody who really understands not the spectrum of technology, but also can foresee where the ID matching technology can move in the future. So ID matching is probably one area that you should watch out of what will be the key element inside Datacloud. And that's probably where I'll pause about Datacloud. So I wanted to take you on an imaginary journey, and this is like how we tell stories. We have a fictitious brand, you probably have heard of this brand, London MuleSoft. And wanted to take you through a journey where a customer is actually on a journey to purchase some products from a retail group called London MuleSoft. and they're trying to buy hiking gear, a pair of shoes, or a pair of camping wear, and I'm sorry, I have no names attached to this persona, so we'll just call that as a customer. And the relevant message that typically goes out to that customer is, hey, we have this new product that's available. Do you want to go and buy this product from the website? Because we look at your CRM records in the past, and looks like you have purchased a jacket before. Maybe it's time you upgraded your jacket because the last time you bought your jacket was 2 years ago. Maybe it's worn out, we have a new model, etc. And that is a standard way of sending out a message. Now, if it goes to the correct customer, because most of the times you've seen promotional emails landing very widely, and it results in a good action. One example is, suppose you have purchased, let's say, Apple is a big customer of Salesforce for marketing cloud business as well. Suppose, let's say, you've purchased the latest iPhone, and you've had issues with your iPhone, so you went back to the Apple Service Center, and you gave them back the phone saying, hey, my screen is broken, something is wrong with my display. And let's imagine the same case where there's a new version of the iPhone being launched next week. You ideally shouldn't, as a customer in that journey, receive that promotional email saying, hey, there's a new iPhone coming, do you want to go and buy? Because you are already in distress. You're a customer who's gone to customer service because your product is having issues. Ideally, Apple should suppress the message for you, right? But imagine that is just email. But what if, imagine you're so frustrated on the day you return your phone, and you come back and you open your Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and you see an ad for a new iPhone, basically using the same ID. So Apple shouldn't be wasting their ad money on you, because it is a money loss for them, because they should be suppressing their ads as well. How does that actually happen? All that is a part of the ID matching, which is done within DMP before, and we've taken that goodness to Datacloud. So now, if it results in a good action, it actually is a good use case. Sorry about the snowflake. Oh, Zoom meeting.
Can't Datacloud do something about that? Automatically? With EINSTIN?
Sorry for that.
Yeah. Yeah, the snowflake logo will probably disappear the next time I see it. But every other part of the application ecosystem that we see can be seamlessly connected into Datacloud. And this part of the application, previously, how did customers connect, right? Before MuleSoft, or if you speak with a customer who's not using MuleSoft, or is maybe not using a combination of integration technology, the way they end up doing is having their developers write point-to-point code. And we've seen this mess while working with MuleSoft solution, and we're trying to bring MuleSoft into those ecosystems. And we change that messaging, the time it takes for an enterprise application company to build some sort of this integration is about 9 to 8 months. And this number has been approximated based on the studies that we've done. And the standard pitch is we can do 3x faster. And we have actually proven this inside Salesforce. Like, there's a part of Datacloud team which started building elements of Datacloud without using MuleSoft. And there's a part of the engineering team at MuleSoft who said, wait a second, let's do an A/B test. We will build the same feature using MuleSoft. And what they were able to see is that feature took the Datacloud team about 3 months to roll out. And we, using MuleSoft, were able to roll that out in less than 25 days. So it is proven internally, hence we take that message outside. And what that means, you have a question?
I'd just really love to come in there and say, it would be great to see that message projected publicly on blogs or webinars, or not just to this audience here, but to the stakeholders, but also to my own Salesforce COE practice that we have at EINSTIN. Because there's a general, let's say, cynicism in the market that the marketing figures that you put up about any, how do you come to those figures and how do you get there? Because then it'd be much easier to get people to buy into it. We've seen it, you see it on projects day in, day out, but we don't always have the time to track those metrics and improve it in our engagements. You guys as the product vendor and with the billions of revenues from the, it'd be great to have something tangible around that.
Brilliant. No, absolutely. Feedback taken. And I think that is probably the more grounded reality when we are trying to approach it. Saying there could be parts of the product confidential data that may not come up, but what you just said, customer stories that go to the level of depth where we can share some of those real-time stats. That's typically what we are trying to do. And our new CMO who's coming in is probably going to take that message to the next level. So wait to see what we share at Dreamforce. So thank you for that feedback, anyways. Okay, so NQ's problem to solve is, we spoke about the irrelevant message that could come in, and what could happen if a customer gets that irrelevant message. Either the customer could say, oh, I don't want to listen to this brand ever, I will unsubscribe. So you unsubscribe, you lose a customer, not from a customer lifecycle, but you lose them from a marketing journey. Which means the next time you have to win them over again to bring them back into the marketing journey, which means there's dollar revenue, that dollar values that you have to spend. So I won't make this as a marketing pitch, but if we talk about where Datacloud sits, and this is like a retail personalization journey that we just saw, what this really means for MuleSoft is from the lens of a connector ecosystem. So what we're doing is, every connector that is available within MuleSoft is now exposed within Datacloud through a Datacloud for MuleSoft ingestion point. And you probably have seen there is a connector for CDP before, CDP connector by MuleSoft. Now it has been upgraded to as Datacloud connector for Datacloud connector by MuleSoft. And the goodness of Datacloud connector for MuleSoft packs in a lot of value, which if you have not tried it, you will not realize how much effort you're actually saving yourself.
Is the connectors available? So the MuleSoft connectors for Datacloud, will they be native or they will be exposed through connected apps?
Good question. So we're actually taking a combined approach there. So there will be connectors that will be available through Exchange, Marketplace, but there are parts of those connectors that we are partnering with third-party OEMs and vendors like, for example, I've taken any of CData. So CData has built a lot of connectors even for MuleSoft on our marketplace, right? So we are rewriting those connectors, I would say, to bring in the capability for Datacloud. And Datacloud, I would probably put behind MuleSoft as the second fastest growing cloud in the company. Every customer who has previously tried to have a data lake or a data store inside the company is trying to get a message from Salesforce like, where do I position this? What value will it add extra for me if I already have my own Snowflake, if I have my own Databricks ecosystem? So that's the answer that we're trying to solve for them. And the real value of Datacloud for today customers would be if they are having a well-formatted ecosystem. So if their Salesforce implementation itself is gone bad, Datacloud doesn't add a lot of value. That is something that we are telling upfront. So the way Datacloud today is being positioned is we analyze how good is the Salesforce implementation. If there are challenges within the Salesforce implementation, we don't position Datacloud. We first ask the customer that you'll be solving a double-edged problem, and we ask them to fix those issues before we actually position. And that's the discovery exercise that we are doing from a field side, jointly with our Datacloud peers. So that is where it is important. And when Datacloud connectors for MuleSoft are at the point of ingestion, if you actually implemented it and if you set up monitoring on it, typical view for you to see how the resources look like, because it's all like for the sample that I built was all deployed on Cloud Hub. So there were resources that we were extracting data from SAP, extracting data from Snowflake, Databricks, Oracle, third-party sources, Workday, for example. And the best part is we can actually have a detailed view of how that data is all coming together. Which today, and this is the golden moment, Datacloud doesn't have visibility at the point of ingestion. It doesn't have monitoring at the point of ingestion. You can't see if at the point of ingestion, if something breaks, you have to re-ingest. Why is this a problem? It is a problem for a brand like, I'll take an example, like let's say Apple. If Apple was supposed to launch a campaign for their mobile launch that is scheduled to go live next week. They actually run their campaign many weeks ago, maybe many months ago, and ingestion can be a very lengthy process. It's not like you can ingest data real time. There could be data that is sitting in multiple sources. So it's a very well-planned activity. If at the point of ingestion, ingestion could take many weeks as well, as you've probably seen. If at the point of ingestion there is no governance, and if the data has gone wrong, bad data in, bad data out, you have to re-ingest, which means campaigns will be delayed, which means it has a direct impact on the brand, which means customers will not have a near real-time view for their own activities, and many more. So we're trying to solve the point of ingestion problem. Yes.
Wouldn't you do that in your sandbox first and before you do that?
When you say sandbox, this is Salesforce. Okay. This is I'm talking about data coming from disparate sources. Yeah. Like, for example, I was with Marketing Cloud before, right? I used to work with all the big agencies, the Dentsu, the Merkels of the world, and whenever customer like Adidas was running a campaign, they used to not rely on one agency alone. They used to have 2-3 campaigns, backup, and there's another backup. So in case something goes wrong, they have another journey ready to be activated. And each of these vendors do segmentation manually. There are people sitting and manually reviewing Excel files, ensuring that this customer record is fine. And they used to send a segment to Adidas. And Adidas used to then put it in their Marketing Cloud journey. First journey, backup journey, backup journey. And that is just one journey. And you can see how data coming from multiple companies, multiple agencies, multiple sources will also have impact on the form factor. No matter how many times we say that this is a format you have to follow, there's also always room for human error. Right? So what we wanted to do is, at the point of ingestion, what can we really do? And this is why this is super relevant now, because you've probably seen MuleSoft and Datacloud not in this close proximity. And this is how we are coming more closer together. So improving the operational efficiency. So I told you about the ingestion issue with just now. So if that actually takes into effect, you'll actually see it having an end result impact as well, with the campaigns getting delayed and other issues with respect to re-ingestion and remodeling, etc. So that's a big problem. And increasing productivity is really about activating personalization for customers as well. You don't want to send customers repeated emails just because your marketing campaign or commerce campaign for personalization on the website went bad. Customers shouldn't then run for it. So how can we really help in that angle? And last one is reducing the cost. So that is the example that we shared more. How does it really work under the hood? This is one slide that I particularly put together based on stripped out some of the confidential product architecture, really the bare bones of Datacloud at the point of ingestion. We have not shown this in a public capacity before, but we are showing it now because we are building public accelerators and we want our customers and partners and developers to really understand what happens. So, Datacloud out-of-the-box connectors. I told you about Marketing Cloud connectors and Tableau connectors and Datacloud brings. Let's imagine a scenario. At the point of ingestion, everything is good, looking good, like there's no errors. It goes well. It goes to the storage layer. There's a modeling that is created. There's a DMO layer, data management object that is created. And data management object starts validating and ensuring that all the records are fine in terms of, if there is a metadata structure to be followed, it is ensuring that all the data is running the same sequence. And outside, it goes into, let's say, a marketing campaign, activation campaign, personalization campaign, etc. Suppose, if at this point, there is some corruption of data, which is very much a possibility, because the default out-of-the-box connectors of Datacloud today do not have error handling. A biggest gap that, if not taken care of, by default, nobody thought of that in marketing space. Nobody thought of that from a commerce space or a Tableau space. They thought that they could ingest data, but what if at the point of ingestion there was no validation to be done? And we're not saying that we will do the data lineage or data duplication check, but we're doing some basic principle checks. The validation that we do in MuleSoft, error handling, that is missing. And if that goes, By the time the storage layer is modeled, the process from step 1 to step 2 is anywhere between 1 to 2 weeks. And you can imagine this being a single step. If there are multiple other sources, it only adds to that complexity. And there's no way today within Datacloud that you can figure out that something has gone wrong because you ingested bad data, or data in the wrong format. And as a result, the campaign that comes out is going to be crap, activation is going to be bad, and we can't hear the end of it. Our customers are going to be very furious. So this is where MuleSoft becomes very critical. And ingestion, we have done it for other customers, but one thing where we have to be transparent about is we don't ingest at scale. MuleSoft is not super good for scale ingestion. And we are not saying that we are solving that problem here, but we build the ingestion using the Datacloud's ingestion API. I'll talk about what that ingestion API does today. In a batch mode, it can take a payload of up to 200 MB in a single batch payload. And for a streaming batch, a streaming API, the payload could be anywhere between 1 to 3 MB. And this is per page. And this is real-time streaming with an almost latency of no more than 10 to 15 seconds. And if you're taking that for a customer that we are speaking about, like Ford, where they are trying to send their real-time manufacturing data back to their ERP system, but also want to make sure customers who are able to personalize their color of their car, able to check the inventory if that color of the car is available, that data should be real time. Jumping from a customer's website, going into an ERP, hitting back-end servers and telling when would be the latest available date for this car. All that result has to be having a turnaround time within no more than a few minutes. And that is the customer experience that we're trying to drive. And this was a dream a few years ago because we could not do that at scale. Imagine if there's like a handful of customers, it's fine, but thousands of customers, even going up to 1 million, I think we probably tested it up to 10 to 15 million simultaneous requests for Ford. And that is the story you'll see us repeating at Dreamforce again. That is the power of ingestion. And we have really made it so simple using the ingestion API. We never built the ingestion API, I want to be clear about it. We are using the ingestion API modeled by Datacloud and plugging in our connector on top of it, which brings all the goodness of error handling, data validation. You could do governance on top of it. You could have monitoring on top of it. If, in case you want to limit some permissions, restrictions, you could apply policies on top of it. Those were missing in Datacloud. And you can see various use cases. We'll speak about those use cases. Activation, this is where Datacloud has done its processing, and you have to send it to not just Marketing Cloud, Commerce Cloud, but it has to go to third-party solutions. Let's say you want to exchange a segment to Facebook. Let's say you want to exchange a segment with Nielsen. If you're using Nielsen's data to identify how many people in the room today have purchased a house and have a mortgage, but also have a kid in the family. So if you want to try to segment that data, Nielsen gives you that data set, but that is an unverified data set. Salesforce customers use that unverified data set with their first-party data and try to find out what is the probabilistic and deterministic match. And to activate that at the point of ingestion to third-party sources where there is no connector available, MuleSoft is the way to go. And we have batch processing and ability to send it to multiple destinations. And data enrichment is something that we are building as a capability.
So in ingestion, you are not doing any checksum or data integrity back to the source. It is just the error handling, what's happening from the load perspective.
Yeah, good point. So the connector by itself doesn't do any of those. But by using MuleSoft, we actually give the capability to build all of that workflow. So the accelerator that we are building as a part of the field-led activity is going to bring all that goodness around in pre-built data checks, pre-built error handling checks, so that our customers could leverage the benefit of it. The other element was around data actions and webhook. Suppose there are objects that you want to use within Datacloud externally. Suppose you want to expose that object. You can invoke that using a webhook action, or you could take all of that real-time data into a streaming insight. So streaming insight, I'll give you an example. So let's imagine Monzo opened this pack, like This was many years ago now. Imagine there's another new neobank coming up, and they have purchased some vendor solution. And when they actually have a customer going through an onboarding journey, they do various checks. Like there's ID check, there's a fraud analysis check, there's a legality check based on your NI numbers and your tax code, etc. So all of this happens behind the scene, and some of them do it in a very 3 or 4 click process. Some of them actually take a few days, some of them could take a few weeks. So in that journey, what we are saying is Datacloud provides such a rich insight. Suppose somebody is a Salesforce customer and they're bringing that customer's data from external sources, and they ingest into Datacloud. In the onboarding journey, the ID that is generated by ID matching could be used for external activation. So you could use that for saying that Salesforce has verified this is a customer who's also previously existed within the same customer buying journey. Maybe he signed up before, maybe that record exists anywhere, and we can take that and invoke. So that streaming insight and streaming object activation is one of the other insights that we can do. I wanted to share more about what are the supported operations. So this is important because here is where MuleSoft becomes very critical. And these are the things that you cannot do without MuleSoft today. Question comes up like, what if the customer has something like Apogee? What if they have something like Com or Boomi, right? The way we are trying to do this is the technology that is used to support parts and pieces of Datacloud is at some level sharing the same code base for MuleSoft. So we are making sure the technical disparity for customers who are using MuleSoft and Datacloud, the gap is almost very small. We are closing on that gap. Because Datacloud was a homegrown product, MuleSoft was an acquisition, and we are moving closer to Salesforce every day. You probably saw Hyperforce, so MuleSoft in the future, you'll see MuleSoft runtime being moved to Hyperforce. So MuleSoft will probably be on the same stack as Salesforce's. Few of those operations, and probably leave this for you to deep dive further, because this is a very in-depth topic about what are the supported operations. So these supported operations, in a way, end up becoming your end customers' use cases. And what we have done is brought these use cases to you in this forum today. And the last time I probably have shared this was for my own wider team's enablement on what supported operations is. So if you look at Datacloud documentation today and look at it through the lens of a MuleSoft developer, you probably will find this, but it's probably summarized across 20 to 30 different documentation sheets and pages. So I've tried to summarize that in a very, very crisp way so that you can understand use cases that are very relevant to our customers. I'll come back to this, but the integration use cases that we typically have seen more recently, the conversations that we have had is, how can I use MuleSoft to connect with ecosystems like SAP, Marketo, and Microsoft Dynamics in combination with Datacloud? Integration with the Amazon ecosystem, the Azure ecosystem, those are the most popular ones coming up. And also integration with popular SQL formats or NoSQL formats and streaming events like Kafka as well. How can we actually integrate in combination? So we are trying to build referenceable, reusable architecture templates, which you'll see coming in as a part of the product roadmap, which will be given free of cost on our exchange. So those are like our MuleSoft catalysts or accelerators, right? And that's where we wanted to not restrict MuleSoft, locking away that goodness of what we are hearing from other customers. Unlike previously, where we probably haven't shared what would somebody be using for a scale kind of a customer versus somebody who's probably not having more than 50 or 30 employees. So these are the supported operations that our Datacloud connector today supports. Streaming ingestion, bulk ingestion, profiling API, querying API, calculated insights, and data actions. If you start going deeper into Datacloud, you'll find each of these being a separate capability in itself.
So streaming is still format 3 or is it a change in protocol? I heard Salesforce is moving away from.
Yeah. I think we still support the backward one, but we are thinking of going broader as well. Like when we start working with the more recent streaming technologies that our customers are asking, we are bringing in those into the capabilities.
So this will be a new one?
This is the newer one. So for the Datacloud ingestion API, that supports the most recent one.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you look back, going back to our CDP connector, you probably wouldn't have found this in your ingestion. So the targeted use case, again, I will spend a lot of time talking about the use case, is unifying data. When I say unifying data, even before it comes to Datacloud, needs to be in some way or form or shape coming to a structure that is ingestible by Datacloud. And that's all that I mean by unification. We're not doing heavy lifting ETL operations. Unlocking core banking insurance or data need issues for CDP. These are for customers who are still trying to ask us, I'm trying to solve my marketing use case, but I need to do it more real time, and I need Salesforce to support me with hyperscaler data storage. So that is where we position Datacloud and MuleSoft. And simplified troubleshooting and operation is exactly the error handling scenario that I described. Because if you have governance, if you have monitoring at the point of ingestion, you can look at Visualizer. It will tell you which particular ingestion point failed, and you don't have to activate any other stream except for restarting this work stream. So it is very important from that angle. Data needs to be transformed or enriched, and this is more about combining multiple data sources together. If you're bringing in 2 or 3 Excel files, Datacloud does it in a sequential way because it's one ingestion endpoint. But if we combine that through MuleSoft and view it as a batch stream, it is more functionally convenient if you're also bringing in other data like from SAP or other database systems. And the last one is around how do we activate on that data, which is particularly data that doesn't necessarily have to go back to Salesforce, because sometimes we talk to customers who are not using Salesforce ecosystem, but are using, when I say not using Salesforce ecosystem, they could be using Sales Cloud, they could be using Service Cloud, but they could be using Adobe marketing solution, they could be using Oracle's marketing solution. So we cannot restrict our Datacloud usage to those customers who say, I will not send this activation segment to Marketing Cloud. So that is again powered by the Oracle Marketing Cloud connector or the Adobe Marketing Cloud connector that we have in MuleSoft. The only way to do it is through MuleSoft. Otherwise, more recently we did a POC where somebody said, oh no, I'll use the ingestion API of MuleSoft because you've already given me a data activation API. I'm going to use it. I don't need MuleSoft. And they did that POC. Took them 2 months to build the whole Adobe integration. And 2 months later, the only thing that they had working was sending data but no acknowledgement back. Ingestion API, for those who haven't worked with Datacloud before, can get very complex very soon. Looks very simple, just one API to deal with, but you have to understand the underlying interfaces and modules. What we've seen is with MuleSoft, we simplify those interfaces for you and rather make it easier. And that's where coexistence of MuleSoft and Datacloud becomes even more stronger. And that customer story, where we ran the POC, 2 weeks later, one of my SEs, not even a developer, we are pre-sales, we don't write production ready code, we just do a demoable asset. Some of us are a little more geeky that we write something that can actually work instead of just showing a mirror demo. And that particular SE was able to stand up that POC in about less than 2 days. And we got a marketing execution journey working on Adobe Marketing Suite. And all he had to do was figure out how to write an API spec that can pull data from Adobe and send that data back. And Datacloud connectors by MuleSoft made it very, very simple. So stories like this, coming back to you, Kevin, need to be told. Agreed. So there are a few other customer use cases, and I'll leave this with you. Each one could be retold many times, and these are the things that we have been hearing. And I wanted to share what I have been hearing when I go into customer discovery calls. My team goes into customer discovery calls. So we are creating like an index of use cases, and we are then validating: is this use case really applicable? Is this solvable? Are we stretching too much? Is this a valid one for MuleSoft investment? We are asking all those questions. So today what I wanted to share with you is customer use cases where there is the right data to be brought in, if there's a near real-time use case, or a real-time data use case. The first one, banking. Most popular segment here in the UK, financial services. Show me profile and demographic data that is being ingested from multiple sources, which means customer could have numerous other data points that is coming into Datacloud. And if that is to be used for activation on financial services cloud, there could be a third-party application like Jack Henry, there could be FIS or Pfizer, and if all of this needs to be validated and connected with Datacloud, the only other solution that can actually prove this and do this at a faster rate from a templating perspective is how we prove this with Datacloud as well. So where this actually comes into point is the outcome for the customer. We're always, Salesforce, you've always seen us talking about business value. You've seen us putting a number on the board. And for these use cases, I won't put a number on the board, but these are typically what we are telling our customers as well. Like, because you see this coming together, you can actually see there is more increment around your customer loyalty because you're actually going to maintain a consistent way in which data is shown. And the single view of what a banker would see versus a financial advisor would see is very much up to date because connecting all of that back into Datacloud is another key element. And one important message that we should take at this stage is we're not saying that Datacloud should be the only storage source where you're going to bring all that data and put it on Datacloud. We're not asking you to do that, right? MuleSoft, working with Datacloud, is really helping tell that story of the benefit customers get if they are a Salesforce customer and invested heavily in Salesforce technologies while talking with other enterprise apps. Similar one, the financial services. This is more recent one. There was a customer who came, a large bank, said, I want to get insights on my customer spending behaviors. And we asked them, like, okay, tell us more. What does your architecture look like? They opened up layers and layers of architecture. Beyond the point, we said, look, it looks like you're telling us at a surface level, it looks like there's a lot more layers to peel. And what we realized is, as they started creating that single source, they had ended up creating their own data lake within the company. And that data lake, just to manage it, was becoming a hassle. And all that data was being managed was a combination of Salesforce and other technologies, but we had to see and prove value of how that data really could mean a lot of value, not just for their real-time use case, but also for the retention strategy and the workflows that they were trying to create. So we used a combination of RPA, Flow Orchestrator, and MuleSoft here. This is another one where it was about ingestion. So this is a real time where, let's say you receive a particular amount of transaction, and that transaction needs to be validated. But if, let's imagine, a bank has a sister company, which could be a financial advisor company. Supposedly, you have taken out all the money from your bank. Let's say you have $1 million in your bank. You took out that money. The financial advisory team should know that at the point of financial advisory consultation, they should first check if you still have money in the bank, right? And that gap today, in reality, is no more than 24 to 48 hours because it's a batch process that the bank exchanges between sister apps. And this was a use case that they challenged us with, like, this was a US customer, not based out of UK. And they asked, how can you help us real time? And Datacloud was being discussed. MuleSoft was one of the ways to do it. They had tried with other solutions in the past to do it in-house, but we sort of have proven the use case for that. And with that, I particularly would call this as an end, but open to answer any other questions. Wanted to show you more with respect to Datacloud, the instance, but yeah, probably a deeper conversation for later. Any questions? Happy to take any questions that are beyond what we just spoke as well. If not, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
One question, like, what would your recommendation be? Suppose a customer is already having.
Start the trivia quiz. We have Kahoot space for which needing internet, so we have shared the Wi-Fi as well. And yeah, for the feedback quiz winners, we have some goodies from group. That excites
So
me.
yeah, let us know. So this is the password in case if anyone not logged into.
Be brilliant and double is 77. So let's start. Loading the game pin.
Is it okay? Ready? Okay, next one.
Next. Okay, there are 10 of them. How many recipes data flows can you run within 24 hours? Third one. In creating a connection to Salesforce object, you are able to see a field associated with that object. What should you do? That was super fun. Which option is not supported by CRM when registering data sent through a recipe system? Gigi and Sam, they are Who is Gigi? Second step in Datacloud after connectivity. Computer diagrams. Romances. Harmonize. Which capabilities of MuleSoft do you use for activation stuff? how many cloud APIs does MuleSoft connector support? It's the same one. I think the question was second place, Gigi.
He's anonymous. No one knows. My password, so please don't use it.
Guys, do get like this flag.
Anyone would have known that. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Can we have a roll call?
So if you could just stand here.
Just for